Commander Elara Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Imminent system. Through the viewport, the battle unfolded like a deadly ballet energy weapons cutting through the void, plasma torpedoes leaving trails of blue fire, and ships blinking out of existence in brilliant flashes of light. The Galactic Concord, a coalition of the 7 most advanced species in known space, was losing to the Xik'thari invasion fleet. Status report, Elara demanded, her voice steady despite the carnage before them. Lieutenant Commander Xik'thari, her tactical officer, responded without taking his eyes off his console. Concord defense fleet is down to 38% operational capacity. Xik'thari vessels have suffered minimal losses. The Imminent orbital platforms will fail within the hour. Elara nodded, absorbing the information. Humanity had only gained interstellar capability 40 years ago, stumbling onto the galactic stage to find it already ancient, already ordered, already set in its ways. The Concord had grudgingly admitted Earth as an observational member, a polite term for a primitive species permitted to watch and learn from their betters. But now those betters were dying. "Open a channel to the Concord flagship," Elara ordered. The comm officer looked up with concern. "Commander, they've been ignoring our hails for the past 20 minutes. Elara's jaw tightened. "Override their comm protocols. Use the algorithms Dr. Carver developed." Within moments, the stern face of High Admiral Xik'thari appeared on screen, his chitinous features contorted with both stress and disdain. "Human vessel, this is not the time." "High Admiral," Elara interrupted, "we're here to help." A sound emerged from Xik'thari that Elara's translator rendered as bitter laughter. "With one ship? Your species barely understands gravity manipulation. The Xik'thari fleet has technology even we cannot counter. Return to your system, Commander. This isn't your fight." "With respect, sir, it became our fight when the Xik'thari destroyed our research outpost in the Proxima system last month." Xik'thari's compound eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "That was unfortunate. But one outpost hardly. 342 human lives." Elara cut in, her voice hard as steel. "Now, you can continue to dismiss us, or you can accept that while you've been fighting the Xik'thari for a century with conventional tactics, we've been looking at them with fresh eyes." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "And what has your fresh perspective revealed, Commander?" A thin smile appeared on Elara's face. "That your fleet is currently positioned in a way that creates a blind spot in the Xik'thari defensive formation. If you'll send us the tactical data, we can prove it." After a moment's hesitation, Xik'thari gestured to someone off-screen. "Very well. But do not interfere with our battle plans." The transmission ended, and data began streaming to the Defiance's computers. Dr. Maya Santos, the ship's chief science officer and xenobiologist, approached the command chair. "He doesn't believe we can help." "No," Elara agreed, "but he's desperate enough to humor us." She turned to her communications officer. "Signal the Intrepid and the Valiant. Tell them to maintain position at the jump point, but be ready to move on my mark." Maya's eyes widened. "You didn't tell the Admiral about our other ships." Elara's smile turned predatory. He didn't ask. The Concord had been fighting the Xik'thari for over a century, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. The Xik'thari were a hive-minded species, operating with perfect coordination but limited tactical flexibility. The Concord races relied on technology so advanced it approached the mystical, but they had grown complacent, set in their ways. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability. In the Defiance's tactical center, Elara stood before a holographic display of the battlefield with her senior staff. "The Concord has been fighting the Xik'thari for generations using the same playbook," she explained. "And the Xik'thari have adapted, but they've never faced humans before." Chief Engineer Theo Okafor pointed to a section of the Xik'thari formation. "Their ships maintain perfect geometric spacing. It's almost mathematical." "Exactly," Elara said. "Dr. Santos, explain what you found." Maya stepped forward. The Xik'thari communicate through a subspace frequency that's similar to quantum entanglement. Each ship is connected to every other ship in their fleet simultaneously. It's why they coordinate so perfectly. And why the Concord can't disrupt their communications, added JC. But Maya continued, that network has to process enormous amounts of information. To manage it efficiently, they use predictive algorithms. Elara took over. They don't react to what's happening now, they react to what their algorithms predict will happen next, based on centuries of fighting the Concord. Understanding dawned on Theo's face. And they've never fought humans before. So they have no data set for our tactics, Elara finished. For the next few minutes, we're effectively invisible to their prediction matrix. Jace grinned. Until we start shooting. Which is why we need to make those minutes count, Elara said. Here's the plan. Back on the bridge, Elara opened a channel to the Concord flagship. Hi, Admiral, we've analyzed the tactical data. We believe there's a weakness in the Xik'thari formation that your sensors aren't detecting. Admiral Xik'thari's face appeared, looking even more harried than before. We've scanned their fleet with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, Commander. If there was a weakness, we would have found it. With respect, sir, your technology might be the problem. You're looking for what you expect to see. Elara gestured, and Maya sent their analysis to the Concord vessel. The Xik'thari predict your movements because you've been fighting each other for a century. But they've never encountered human tactics. Xik'thari's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the data. This is unconventional. So are we, Elara replied. All we need is for your forces to execute a standard Thalos maneuver toward their center mass. That would expose our flanks, only if they react as you expect. But their predictive algorithms won't account for what we're about to do. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Very well, Commander. We have little left to lose. Initiating Thalos maneuver in 3 minutes. As the communication ended, Elara turned to her crew. Battle stations. Signal the Intrepid and Valiant to jump in on my mark. And prepare the Raven drones. The bridge crew exchanged glances. The Raven drones were experimental small, expendable craft loaded with a suite of electronic warfare packages that Earth's military had developed in secret. They hadn't even shared the technology with the Concord. As the Concord fleet began their maneuver, Elara watched the Xik'thari response on the tactical display. Just as predicted, they shifted to counter the expected Concord attack pattern, opening a temporary gap in their formation. Now, Elara ordered, launch Ravens and signal our ships to jump in. The space around the Defiance erupted with activity as dozens of Raven drones launched, accelerating toward the Xik'thari fleet. Simultaneously, the Intrepid and Valiant dropped out of hyperspace on the opposite side of the battlefield, launching their own complement of drones. On the Concord flagship, Admiral Xik'thari watched in confusion. What are those devices? They're too small to be effective weapons. His tactical officer replied with a note of concern. They're broadcasting across all frequencies, sir. The patterns are chaotic. I've never seen anything like it. Across the battlefield, the Xik'thari fleet's perfect formation began to waver. On the Defiance, Maya monitored the sensor readings with growing excitement. It's working. The Raven drones are flooding their network with contradictory data. Their predictive algorithms can't process it. Elara nodded grimly. The Ravens are introducing noise into their system, the electronic warfare equivalent of shouting nonsense in a crowded room. Tactical, target their command ships. The Defiance surged forward, its conventional weapons modest by Concord standards, but precisely aimed at the now vulnerable nodes in the Xik'thari network. The Intrepid and Valiant followed suit from the opposite direction, creating a crossfire. Admiral Xik'thari's voice came through the comm. What is happening, Commander? Their strength is their perfect coordination, Elara explained as her ship rocked from a glancing hit. So we're giving them too much information to coordinate. The drones are transmitting contradictory tactical data, sensor ghosts, and command overrides in formats their system recognizes, but can't properly process. But how? Because humans spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars, Admiral. Electronic warfare isn't new to us, we've just adapted it to their network. Understanding dawned on the Admiral's alien features. Your species turned your greatest weakness, your history of internal conflict, into an advantage. Elara allowed herself a small smile. We prefer to think of it as learning from our mistakes. On the tactical display, the Xik'thari fleet's formation had dissolved into chaos. Ships fired at sensor ghosts or executed contradictory maneuvers, colliding with one another. The Concord fleet, following Elara's hastily transmitted instructions, exploited the confusion with precision strikes. Their command and control is failing, Jace reported. They're reverting to individual ship actions without coordination. Signal the Concord, Elara ordered. Tell them to target these coordinates. She highlighted several points on the tactical display. These are their remaining communication nexus points. As the battle progressed, the tide turned decisively. Without their perfect coordination, the Xik'thari ships, while individually powerful, could not match the combined might of the Concord fleet and the surgical precision of the human vessels. On the bridge of the Defiance, Elara allowed herself to breathe as the remaining Xik'thari ships began to retreat. They're jumping out of the system, Jace reported, a note of disbelief in his voice. We actually did it. Maya shook her head in wonder. The Concord has been fighting them for a century, and we just turned the tide in an hour. Don't celebrate yet, Elara cautioned. This was one battle. The Xik'thari will adapt. So will we, Theo said confidently. It's what humans do best. 2 days later, Elara stood in the grand chamber of the Concord Council on Mieran Prime. The circular room was filled with representatives from all 7 of the founding species, their diverse anatomies making the human delegation look remarkably homogeneous by comparison. High Admiral Zex Lore stood before the council, concluding his report. And so, for the first time in 50 years, a major Xik'thari assault was not merely halted but decisively repelled. Early intelligence suggests their leadership is in disarray, struggling to adapt to this unprecedented defeat. The Archon of the Council, a Telosian whose crystalline body structure refracted light in mesmerizing patterns, leaned forward. And you attribute this victory to the human vessels? I do, Archon, Zexlor replied, his compound eyes briefly meeting Elara's gaze. Commander Reeves and her ships employed tactics and technology that the Xik'thari were unprepared for. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elara could sense the mix of disbelief, relief, and reluctant admiration. Commander Reeves, the Archon addressed her directly, your species has been part of interstellar society for mere decades. How did you develop capabilities that have eluded the Concord for generations? Elara stepped forward, aware that her answer would shape humanity's place in the galactic community. Archon, members of the Council, the answer is simple: perspective. The Concord and the Xik'thari have been locked in conflict for so long that you've developed predictable patterns. Humans brought fresh eyes to the problem. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. But more than that, humanity's history has uniquely prepared us for this moment. While your civilizations reached harmony thousands of years ago, humans continued to struggle against ourselves. Every war was a lesson. Every conflict taught us to innovate or perish. The Valaran representative, whose gelatinous form pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, spoke next. You speak of your violent history as if it were an advantage, Commander. Not the violence itself, Elara clarified. The adaptation it forced upon us. Humanity has survived climate disasters, nuclear brinkmanship, social upheaval, and near-extinction events not because we're stronger or smarter than other species, but because we refuse to accept defeat, even from ourselves. The chamber was silent as her words sank in. Finally, the Archon spoke again. The Concord has long viewed humanity as he hesitated. Primitive, Elara supplied with a small smile. Underdeveloped, potentially dangerous. Yes, the Archon admitted. And yet, when the established order failed, It was humans who found a solution where none seemed possible. Admiral Xik'thari stepped forward. Archon, based on the events at Mieran, I formally recommend that humanity's status be elevated from observational member to full alliance partner. The proposal sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. Such an advancement usually took centuries, not decades. And what would this partnership entail? Asked the Phyrexian delegate, their feathered crest rising in a display of cautious interest. Elara seized the moment. An exchange of knowledge and technology, joint military operations against the Xik'thari. And most importantly, the recognition that diversity of thought and approach is not a weakness to be managed, but a strength to be embraced. She gestured to her small team standing nearby. Maya Santos, our xenobiologist, has already identified 3 distinct biological vulnerabilities in Xik'thari physiology that your scientists overlooked because they were focused on technological solutions. Theo Okafor, our engineer, has developed modifications to Concord shields that would make them 30% more effective against Xik'thari weapons. The Archon's crystalline form sparkled as he considered her words. And what does humanity seek in return? A genuine place at the table, Elara replied without hesitation. Not as students or observers, but as partners with unique contributions to make. The Xik'thari won't stop with Mieran. Their next target could be Earth. We want to ensure that doesn't happen. The council chambers fell silent as the delegates communicated among themselves through various technological and telepathic means. Finally, the Archon rose to his full height. Commander Reeves, the Concord Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity is hereby granted provisional full membership, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. His multifaceted eyes seemed to bore into her. We acknowledge that we have perhaps underestimated your species. Elara nodded, maintaining her composure despite the historic nature of the moment. That's a mistake the Xik'thari won't make twice either, Archon. Which is why we need to move quickly. 3 months later, Elara stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Indomitable, the first human vessel built with Concord technological assistance. Around her, a joint human Concord fleet of over 200 ships prepared for what would be the first major offensive against Xik'thari space. Status report, she requested, now wearing the insignia of Commodore. Maya, now her executive officer, replied, all ships report ready. The Concord vessels have successfully integrated our Raven technology into their systems. The Xik'thari jamming countermeasures we encountered in the Proxima skirmish have been neutralized. Elara nodded, studying the tactical display. The intelligence provided by Concord deep cover operatives had revealed the location of a major Xik'thari staging area, one they believed housed the central nexus of their hive-minded communication network. If they could destroy it, the entire Xik'thari military machine would be thrown into disarray. Open channel to Admiral Xik'thari, she ordered. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, his chitinous features now familiar to Elara. They had spent many hours together planning this operation, gradually moving from reluctant cooperation to mutual respect. Commodore Reeves, my fleet stands ready. The Council sends its regards and hopes for a swift victory. As do I, Admiral, Elara replied. Any last-minute intelligence? Nothing new. The Xik'thari appear to be maintaining their standard defensive formation. They do not seem to anticipate our attack. Elara frowned slightly. That concerns me. After Mieran, I expected them to develop new tactics. Perhaps they believe their countermeasures against your Raven technology will be sufficient, Xik'thari suggested. Perhaps, Elara said, not entirely convinced. Either way, we proceed as planned. Jump sequence in 30 seconds. As the fleet prepared to engage their hyperdrives, Elara couldn't shake her unease. In her experience, when things seemed too easy, they rarely were. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Xik'thari system, weapons hot and shields at maximum. But instead of the expected resistance, they found nothing. Scan the system, Elara ordered, her voice tense. Maya worked her console, her expression growing increasingly confused. I'm detecting Xik'thari structures on the fourth planet, but no ships. No defensive platforms. Nothing. It's a trap, Jace suggested from tactical. Or they've abandoned the position, countered Theo. Elara studied the sensor readings herself. Something's not right. Maintain battle formation and approach with caution. Deploy reconnaissance drones. As the fleet moved deeper into the system, the reconnaissance drones transmitted their findings. The Xik'thari installations were intact but showed signs of hasty evacuation. There were no life signs, no active power signatures. Admiral Xik'thari's voice came through the comm. Commodore, we're detecting unusual radiation signatures from the central facility. It matches nothing in our database. Before Elara could respond, Maya called out, hyperspace rupture detected. Massive energy signature incoming. The space before them tore open, but what emerged was not a Xik'thari fleet. It was a single ship, if it could even be called that. The structure was organic and mechanical at once, twisting in ways that defied conventional geometry, extending into dimensions that human eyes struggled to comprehend. What in God's name is that? Elara whispered. On every ship in the fleet, sensors went haywire. Communication systems filled with static. Several of the more sensitive telepathic species among the Concord crews collapsed, overwhelmed by psychic feedback. Admiral Xik'thari's voice came through broken and distorted. Impossible, they actually harbingers. The transmission cut off as the alien vessel, if that's what it was, emitted a pulse of energy that washed over the fleet. Systems flickered but held. Maya worked frantically at her station. The pulse was some kind of scan. Non-destructive, but incredibly invasive. It went through our shields like they weren't even there. A new transmission cut through all communication channels simultaneously. The voice that emerged was not Xik'thari, it was deeper, resonant, speaking perfect galactic standard. Concord vessels, we have no quarrel with you. The Xik'thari have paid their blood price for trespassing where they did not belong. Return to your territories, and you will not be harmed. Elara exchanged glances with her bridge crew, then opened a channel. This is Commodore Elara Reeves of the United Earthship Indomitable. Identify yourself and your intentions in this sector. There was a pause, then, a new species. Interesting. You are not catalogued in the Concord registry we extracted from the Xik'thari. We're relatively new to the galactic community, Elara replied carefully. And you haven't answered my question. Another pause, longer this time. We are the harbingers. The Xik'thari violated the terms of containment set forth in the ancient compact. We have executed judgment, as is our right and duty. Elara's mind raced. None of the Concord briefings had ever mentioned entities called harbingers or any ancient compact. Admiral Xik'thari, she called over a secure channel. What are they talking about? The Admiral's voice was strained when he finally responded. The harbingers are thought to be a myth, a story to frighten children. Ancient guardians who enforce laws set down before the Concord existed. No one has seen them in thousands of years. Well, they seem real enough now, Elara replied. And they've apparently wiped out the Xik'thari for some violation we know nothing about. Before Xik'thari could respond, the Harbinger vessel spoke again. Human vessel, you intrigue us. Your neural patterns are chaotic, unpredictable. Unlike the ordered minds of the Concord. Step forward and parley. We would know more of your kind. Maya shot Elara a concerned look. Commodore, that thing is putting out energy readings that make a supernova look like a flashlight. We have no idea what their capabilities are. Agreed, Elara said softly. But they've already demonstrated they could destroy us if they wanted to. She straightened her uniform. Prepare a shuttle. I'll meet with them. Elara, no, Maya protested. It's too dangerous. Which is exactly why I need to go, Elara replied firmly. If these harbingers have eliminated the Xik'thari, our primary threat, we need to understand why, and whether they pose a new threat to Earth and the Concord. She turned to Jace. You have the con. If I'm not back in 3 hours, or if that thing makes any aggressive move. Get the fleet out of here and warn Earth. The shuttle approached the Harbinger vessel, a journey that felt to Elara like approaching some eldritch god from humanity's ancient mythologies. Up close, the structure seemed to shift and change, sections appearing and disappearing as if parts of it existed in dimensions human senses couldn't properly perceive. An opening appeared in the hull, not a conventional airlock, but rather a section of the structure that simply ceased to exist, revealing a cavernous space beyond. Elara guided the shuttle inside, finding herself in what appeared to be a docking bay that adapted around her vessel, conforming to its shape. As the shuttle settled, Elara checked her equipment one last time. She carried no weapons, they would likely be useless anyway, but wore a standard EVA suit with 6 hours of life support. The shuttle's sensors indicated the atmosphere beyond was breathable, but she wasn't taking chances. The shuttle's hatch opened, and Elara stepped out into the Harbinger vessel. The interior was as impossible as the exterior surfaces that seemed solid one moment became translucent the next, revealing corridors and chambers that folded in on themselves in mind-bending geometries. Hollow came a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. A path illuminated before her, and Elara walked forward, each step feeling simultaneously certain and precarious, and as if the laws of physics themselves were suggestions rather than rules here. Eventually, she reached what she could only describe as a central chamber, though central seemed an inadequate concept in a structure that defied conventional spatial relationships. The room was vast, with what appeared to be windows looking out into space, though Elara suspected they were something far more complex than mere viewports. A figure materialized before her, humanoid in general shape, but clearly not human. Its form had the same quality of shifting reality as the vessel itself, with features that seemed to change subtly with each passing moment. "You are the representative of humanity," the being stated. It wasn't a question. Elara nodded. "I am Commodore Elara Reeves of the United Earth Fleet. We have observed your interaction with the Concord. Your species is unusual. You achieved space travel recently, yet you altered the balance of power between the Concord and the Xik'thari almost immediately. We brought a fresh perspective," Elara said, echoing her words to the Concord Council. Indeed. The being moved, or perhaps the room moved around it. Elara couldn't be sure. The Xik'thari violated the ancient compact by attempting to access prohibited technologies. They discovered a vault of the predecessors and extracted knowledge they were not prepared to wield. "The predecessors?" Elara asked. "Those who came before. Those who nearly destroyed reality itself with their hubris, and who established the compact to prevent such catastrophe from occurring again." The being's form shifted, becoming momentarily more solid. "We are their servants, their legacy, their warning." Elara processed this information, trying to fit it into what she knew of galactic history. And the Xik'thari found some of this prohibited technology. They did. They believed it would give them victory over the Concord. They did not understand that some powers are restricted not out of arbitrary rule, but because reality itself cannot bear their misuse. "So you eliminated them? An entire species?" The being's form rippled in what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. They were warned. They persisted. Judgment was rendered. It paused, studying her. "You disapprove." Elara chose her words carefully. "I find the complete extinction of a sentient species troubling, yes. No matter what crimes they committed." Interesting. The Concord races would not question our authority or methods. It is written into their eldest histories, their genetic memory. But you humans, the being moved closer, its form shifting faster now. You question, you challenge, you do not accept the established order. "It's our nature," Elara admitted. "For better or worse. And yet it was this very nature that allowed you to defeat the Xik'thari when the Concord could not." The being seemed to consider something. Perhaps there is wisdom in chaos that order cannot comprehend. Elara felt a strange pressure in her mind, as if something vast and ancient was gently probing her thoughts. Images flashed through her consciousness: Earth's tumultuous history, humanity's struggles and triumphs, its art and wars, its compassion and cruelty. Fascinating, the being said finally. Your species contains multitudes that the Concord races do not. They evolved toward biological and social harmony. You evolved through conflict toward complexity. The pressure in Elara's mind subsided. We have a saying on Earth, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. The being moved back, its form stabilizing into something more consistently humanoid. The compact must be maintained. The technologies of the predecessors must remain sealed. But perhaps the guardians of those seals need not be unchanging. Elara sensed an opening, a chance to shape humanity's relationship with these ancient enforcers. What are you proposing? The Concord has grown complacent in its certainties. The Xik'thari grew arrogant in their ambition. Humanity, the being, paused. Humanity reminds us of the predecessors before their fall, brilliant, adaptable, dangerous. But perhaps with the right guidance, you might avoid their fate. We generally prefer to determine our own fate, Elara replied carefully. The being made a sound that might have been laughter. Yes, that is precisely why you interest us. The compact needs watchers who question, who adapt, who understand both order and chaos. It gestured, and a portion of the chamber transformed, revealing what appeared to be a map of the galaxy, but unlike any map Elara had ever seen. Regions glowed with strange energies, and points of light pulsed in complex patterns. These are the vaults of the predecessors, the being explained. Sealed repositories of knowledge and technology too dangerous to be released without preparation. The Xik'thari found one by accident and broke its outermost seals. Elara studied the map with growing understanding. And you want what? For humanity to help guard these vaults. Not guard. Understand. Learn. Prepare. The being's form flickered. The compact was never meant to be permanent. It was a pause, a time for the younger races to mature enough to inherit what the predecessors left behind. But maturity requires both wisdom and adaptability. The implications were staggering. Elara took a moment to collect her thoughts. What exactly are you offering? The role. Not subjects like the Concord, not destroyers like the Xik'thari, but students, questioners, challengers of the established order. The being's form solidified further. We will provide access to certain knowledge, not the forbidden technologies themselves, but understanding of why they are forbidden. In return, humanity will serve as consultants to the harbingers. And if we refuse, then you continue on your path, and we on ours. But know that there are forces in this galaxy far beyond the Xik'thari, some bound by the compact, others not. Elara understood the implicit warning. I can't make this decision alone. I would need to consult with Earth's governments, with our scientists and ethicists. Of course. That is precisely why we find your species suitable. The being gestured, and a small crystalline object appeared floating before Elara. Take this. It contains information about the compact, about the harbingers, about what we propose. Enough for your leaders to make an informed decision. Elara reached out cautiously and took the crystal. As her fingers closed around it, she felt a momentary connection to something vast and ancient knowledge that stretched back billions of years, civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth's sun had even formed. We will await your response, the being said. But do not delay over long. The game board has been reset with the Xik'thari's removal, but other pieces are already in motion. 3 weeks later, Elara stood before the United Earth Council in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth, along with delegates from the human colonies in the Sol system, had gathered to hear her report and recommendation. The crystal the Harbinger had given her floated above a specialized containment field, projecting images and data that Earth's best scientists had spent days analyzing. In conclusion, Elara said, finishing her presentation, the Harbingers represent both an unprecedented opportunity and a potential existential threat. Their power far exceeds anything the Concord or Xik'thari ever wielded. And their role as guardians of these predecessor technologies makes them the most influential force in the galaxy. The Secretary General leaned forward. "And your recommendation, Commodore?" Elara took a deep breath. "I believe we should accept their proposal, but with conditions. We should establish a specialized division, scientific, diplomatic, and if necessary, military, dedicated to this new relationship. We should share information with the Concord, but maintain our independence. And most importantly, we should approach this as we've approached every challenge since we left Earth's atmosphere, with caution, curiosity, and courage." Murmurs spread through the chamber as the council members discussed among themselves. Finally, the Secretary General spoke again. "The crystal's data confirms your account, and our scientists are humbled by what little they've been able to understand. The technologies hinted at in these records could transform our civilization or destroy it, as they apparently did the predecessors." He stood, addressing the entire council. "Humanity stands at a crossroads. We have already proven ourselves on the galactic stage by defeating the Xik'thari, where the Concord could not. Now we are offered a role not as subjects or students, but as partners with entities so advanced they might as well be gods to us." The chamber fell silent as he continued. "But we must remember what makes humanity unique. Not our technology, which is primitive by Concord standards. Not our unity, which we struggle with daily. But our diversity of thought, our adaptability, our unwillingness to accept any limit as final." He turned back to Elara. "Commodore Reeves, the Council authorizes you to establish a new division, the Harbinger Interface Directorate. You will select your personnel, establish protocols, and serve as humanity's primary contact with these beings. You will share all non-classified information with the Concord, maintaining our alliance while preserving our autonomy." Elara nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "I understand, Mr. Secretary. And the conditions for our acceptance?" The Secretary General's expression was grave. "We accept the role of consultants, but we must maintain our sovereignty. Any knowledge shared must be available to all of humanity, not just a select few. And if we determine that certain actions by the Harbingers threaten Earth or human colonies, we reserve the right to withdraw from the arrangement." "The Harbingers may not accept those terms," Elara cautioned. "Then we will negotiate," the Secretary General replied firmly. "But we will not surrender our independence or our principles, not even to beings who can destroy stars." 2 days later, Elara returned to the edge of the Sol system, where the Harbinger vessel waited, a twisted impossibility against the backdrop of Neptune's blue glow. This time she brought a small team doctor. Maya Santos, now Director of Xenobiology for the new Directorate, Dr. Theo Okafor, appointed Chief of Predecessor Technology Analysis, and Ambassador Lin Zhao, Earth's most experienced diplomat. As their shuttle approached the massive alien vessel, Lin turned to Elara. "Are you sure they'll accept our conditions?" "No," Elara admitted. "But I think they're more interested in how we respond than in specific terms. They could have simply imposed their will on us, like they did with the Xik'thari," Theo muttered. "Exactly," Elara said. "But they didn't. They offered a choice. That says something about what they want from us." The shuttle once again entered the impossible geometry of the Harbinger vessel, settling into a docking area that seemed to conform around them like a living thing. This time, Elara led her team out without environmental suits, a calculated risk and a show of trust. The same shifting humanoid figure awaited them in the central chamber, though now it seemed to maintain a more consistent form, perhaps for the comfort of the human delegation. "You have returned," it stated, "with others." Elara nodded. "This is our response team. We've considered your proposal." And the being's form rippled slightly. Ambassador Zhao stepped forward. "We accept your offer of partnership, but with certain conditions." She proceeded to outline the Council's requirements: autonomy, shared knowledge, the right to withdraw. When she finished, the being was silent for a long moment. Finally, it made that strange sound that might have been laughter. "You set conditions for us?" It seemed more amused than offended. "No species has attempted to negotiate with the Harbingers in 7 million years." "We wouldn't be human if we didn't try," Elara said simply. The being's form shifted, taking on aspects that seemed almost approving. "Your conditions are acceptable. They demonstrate precisely the qualities that interest us." It moved toward them, and the chamber around them transformed, revealing what appeared to be a virtual map of the galaxy with pulsing points of light scattered throughout. "These are the vaults," the being explained. "Each contains knowledge and technology sealed away when the predecessors realized the danger they had created. Some vaults hold weapons that could unmake reality. Others contain the keys to transcending physical form entirely. All are dangerous in unprepared hands." Dr. Santos studied the map with wide eyes. "How many are there?" 108 across this galaxy. Thousands more in others. Ambassador Zhao looked sharply at the being. "Other galaxies? You operate beyond the Milky Way?" "The predecessors spanned many galaxies before their fall," the being confirmed. "As do we." Theo pointed to a pulsing light near the galactic core. "And this is what the Xik'thari found." "One of the lesser vaults, yes. They breached only its outermost seals, but what they found was enough to threaten the stability of this region." Had they penetrated further, the being's form flickered ominously. "What exactly is our role to be?" Elara asked, bringing the conversation back to immediate concerns. The being gestured, and portions of the map highlighted in different colors. "The Concord races have grown stagnant, tied to traditions established millennia ago. They no longer question, no longer innovate as they once did. The Xik'thari sought power without understanding humanity. It turned to face them directly. Well, humanity brings chaos, but creative chaos. You see problems differently. You challenge assumptions. You adapt. These qualities may help us identify threats before they manifest, and perhaps eventually guide the controlled reintroduction of predecessor knowledge to the younger races." "So we're to be advisors?" Ambassador Zhao asked. "And students," the being added. "We will share certain knowledge with you, not the forbidden technologies themselves, but understanding of their principles, their potential, and their dangers. Your scientists will help develop new containment protocols. Your diplomats will help us better understand the younger races. And if necessary, your soldiers will help us enforce the compact," Elara finished. "Yes." The humans exchanged glances, the full weight of what was being offered and expected settling upon them. "When do we begin?" Elara asked finally. The being's form shifted into something almost resembling a smile. "You already have. The crystal we provided contains the first level of knowledge. Your response to it, careful study, rather than immediate exploitation, was the first test." It gestured, and a portion of the chamber wall dissolved, revealing what appeared to be living quarters designed for humanoid occupancy. "These will serve as your permanent embassy aboard this vessel. Others of your kind may join you, but no more than 12 at any time. We will provide transport between here and your world as needed." Ambassador Zhao stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity, we accept this arrangement and these accommodations. We look forward to a productive relationship." The being nodded, then turned to Elara. "Commodore Reeves, you have been selected as the primary interface between humanity and the Harbingers. Your mind has shown exceptional adaptability and integrity. Are you prepared for this responsibility?" Elara straightened her shoulders. "I am." "Good, because the universe is far more complex and dangerous than even the Concord understands. The game has many players, not all bound by the compact." As the being spoke, the map shifted again, showing dark regions at the edges of the galaxy, pulsing with ominous energy. "The Xik'thari were merely pawns," it continued. "There are greater threats stirring. The removal of the Xik'thari has altered certain balances, accelerated certain timelines. Humanity may well face trials beyond anything you have imagined." Elara studied the map, noting the patterns of darkness spreading inward from the galactic rim. "Then we'd better get started." The being's form solidified into its most human-like appearance yet. Indeed. Welcome to the true galactic stage, Commodore Reeves. Humanity's real test is just beginning. As Elara looked back at the map at the vastness of the galaxy with its secrets and threats, she felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. Humanity had been thrust into a game played by godlike entities, with stakes higher than they could comprehend. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was beating impossible odds. "We'll be ready," she promised, as much to herself as to the ancient being before her. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient machinery stirred, sensing the shift in cosmic balance. The game board had changed. New pieces had entered play. And the universe held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next.